مرحبا. Right now I want to talk about one way to express exclamation in Arabic using the particle ma. In fact, we call it in this structure ma al-ta'ajjubiyya, sort of the ma of exclamation. We can take a ma and then modify a version of whatever adjective or quality the thing we're describing has to turn a sentence from something a little bit pedestrian, the cake is delicious, to something that expresses a little more enthusiasm and emotional energy. How very delicious this cake is. Suppose, my favorite example sentence, we had a very strange professor. We could just say, al-ustadh gharib. The professor is strange, but if we really want to emphasize how very strange that ustadh is, we can take our adjective and put it into a modified pattern. Here we have gharib, and we're going to put it into the pattern, the wazn, af'ala, after a ma. So we go from al-ustadh gharib, take gharib, find its judr, gha, ghain, ra, ba, and turn it into this. Ma aghraba al-ustadh. How strange that professor is. Sometimes I think of this construction as the Little Red Riding Hood construction. If you know the story of Little Red Riding Hood, there's a point where she's looking at a wolf and she's saying, "My, how big your ears are. My, how sharp your teeth are." And that's exactly what we're expressing when we use this construction. How strange the ustadh is. That's it. It's a pretty simple structure, really. There are a couple of things you might wish to know. First, know that af'al form isn't going to change ever based on the gender or number of what we're describing. It's going to stay exactly like that, which keeps our lives simple. Also, notice that it is correct style in Arabic to put an exclamation point, which we call alamat at-ta'ajjub, at the end of the sentence. You might even argue that it's wrong to leave that exclamation point out. In English, of course, you might have been told that exclamation points can be poor style, but in Arabic it is very correct to use an exclamation point there. Third, although this pattern, af'ala, aghraba, looks very similar to the af'al tafdil, that superlative construction that you probably know, it is in fact a verb. A form for verb. So we might think of it in an attempt to kind of square the circle as it being sort of a rhetorical question. Who or what made the ustadh so very strange? Ma aghrab al-ustadh. What is the source of the strangeness? Or what strangified the professor? Functionally, that's exactly how it's going to look. It's going to look very similar to the superlative construction, and if that helps you conceptualize it, there's no harm in maintaining those associations, but know that it is a little bit different. Finally, because this is a verb, its object is going to be mansub, in this case with a fatha. So if we are reading a fully vocalized text aloud, or if you're preparing something to be spoken aloud in a very formal context, that will be important to remember. Let's take some other examples. Al-binaya jamila. The building is beautiful. Fine. But if we're standing in front of a beautiful building, we might say instead, ma, and then take af'ala, find the judr of jamil, say ma ajmala al-binaya, with our exclamation point at the end. Another example, al-baqlawa al-ladhiza. This one is a bit trickier because we need to remember how doubled root letters work, but The principle is absolutely the same. You can say ما ألذ البقلاوة. With a shadda, so that the two thas can cohabitate together. Finally, if we wanted to say Ali, is still very, very nice. Ali Latif we could say, or we could say ما ألطف And here, again, remember all of these are mansoob with a fatha. And Ali, because we don't have an alif lam, is actually going to take tanween in a case like this. ما ألطف Ali and because we need that mansoob ending in formal Arabic. And this would actually be a case where we would need to represent it visually, even in an unvocalized text, because of that alif. So, now you know how to exclaim about things in Arabic.